the galaxy celebrated. On the grand capital world of Caravel 9, thousands of alien species gathered under silver banners that shimmered with the words Galactic Victory. Fireworks burst through the golden skies. Leaders of the Galactic Council gave speeches in a dozen languages, each one declaring that humanity, the dangerous, unpredictable species from the blue world called Earth, was finally extinct. The war that had stretched across centuries, burning stars and leaving entire systems in ruin, was now over. No more hidden outposts. No more last stands. The Council's last campaign had ended on Trinaris, Earth's furthest colony, where human resistance had been crushed under the iron boot of the Dralac Armada. Footage of the final battle was played again and again, burning cities, broken ships, surrendering soldiers, and the crowd roared in triumph each time. But far from the noise and the parades, beyond the rim of mapped space, there floated an asteroid field lost to time. Inside a cracked rock, blackened by age and hidden by jamming signals, a single human outpost sat buried beneath layers of shielding. Its systems had remained silent for decades, listening, watching, waiting. In a cold and narrow control room lit by flickering blue panels, Commander Juno Rise sat alone, staring at a dusty monitor. She was a ghost, declared dead years ago after the fall of New Oslo. Her hair was cropped short, her uniform faded, but her eyes were sharp, filled with the fire of someone who had never stopped fighting. The monitor buzzed, and the transmission from Caravel 9 played in broken fragments. Alien leaders raised their arms, smiled, claimed peace. They cheered as the last known human stronghold fell. Juno didn't move. She watched until the final words echoed out, "The human war is over," and then she reached forward and shut off the screen. Silence filled the room, thick and heavy. For a moment, she closed her eyes. Then she stood and turned toward the sleeping rows of pods behind her. Inside them, figures lay frozen in cryosleep, their bodies still wrapped in the armor of Earth's last soldiers. Some had been there for 20 years. Others had been added only recently. Above each pod was a name. Some names had ranks. Others had only numbers. All were waiting. Juno walked past them slowly, her boots echoing on the steel floor, and stopped at a red panel marked Echo Protocol. Her hand hovered over the switch. She took a breath and flipped it. Alarms buzzed softly. Lights turned green. Across the asteroid base, machines came to life. Old engines coughed, and data screens blinked away. Deep beneath the control room, sealed bays began to open. Hidden hangars revealed sleek black ships, sharp and silent, their Earth markings still bright beneath the dust. The last fleet, codenamed Echo, was waking up. As the systems powered on, a calm voice rang out from the central chamber. "Fleet Command AI Orion Online." "Welcome back, Commander Rise." Juno stepped into the light and gave the AI a sharp nod. "Orion," she said, her voice steady, "prepare the fleet. The Council thinks we're gone. Let's remind them what they've forgotten." The AI paused, then replied, "Acknowledged." Initiating Operation Afterlight. Outside the asteroid, the stars began to shift as the hidden warships powered up their engines. For years, the galaxy had looked away from Earth. For years, the Council had believed humanity was broken, scattered, defeated. But they had been wrong. Earth hadn't died. It had gone quiet on purpose. While the Council had celebrated their victory, Earth had built in silence. It had prepared. Now, with the enemy off guard, the trap was ready to spring. Juno walked back to the command chair and sat down, staring into the black void beyond the steel window. In the distance, the lights of the first ship flickered into life. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. The asteroid field was no longer silent. Deep inside the hidden base, lights glowed from every corridor as systems long dormant came alive. Commander Juno Reyes stood at the center of the command deck, watching the progress as the last fleet of Earth, Echo Fleet, awakened. Around her, technicians stepped out of cryosleep, stretching stiff limbs and blinking at the brightness of the panels. Ships in the underground hangars hummed softly as engines powered up for the first time in decades. Sleek, black vessels fast, invisible to most scanners, and loaded with weapons banned by the Galactic Council, floated into launch position. In the main bay, large screens showed old battle footage, blueprints, and Council weaknesses gathered over years of silence. Above it all, the voice of the AI Orion echoed calmly, giving updates and orders with perfect control. Juno moved through the ship corridors, checking each section as it powered on. These were not fresh recruits. The people waking now were Earth's last veterans, the ones who had refused to surrender, who had chosen to sleep until the time was right. Some had fought on Mars. Others had defended the last human colony before it fell. Every single one of them had lost someone. Every single one of them remembered. In the war room, Juno gave her first briefing. A hologram of the galaxy spun in the air, red marks showing Council strongholds. "They think we're gone," she said, her voice low but strong. "They're unguarded, overconfident, drunk on their own lies. We will hit them fast, hit them hard, and vanish before they understand what happened." The plan was simple: divide the fleet into smaller strike teams, take out key communication nodes, and cripple their early warning systems. The first target was a weapons depot orbiting the dead moon of Isarine 5, heavily stocked, lightly guarded, and essential for Council supply lines. As the crews rushed to their ships, Juno stood in front of her own vessel, the ISV Revenant, sleek and deadly, her flagship since the fall of Titan. The crew boarded quickly. Some saluted. Some simply nodded. They all knew what this mission meant. They were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to return. In the launch bay, engines roared softly, and ship after ship vanished into the dark, using stealth drives developed in secret labs under Antarctica long before the war had ended. Outside the asteroid, no light marked their passing. They moved like shadows through space, faster and quieter than anything the Council had ever seen. Hours later, the first attack began. At Cyrene 5, alien guards watched lazy screens and played games on duty, their weapons resting unused. They didn't expect trouble. The last human signal had been decades ago. Then, without warning, alarms screamed. Explosions ripped through the depot. Gunfire echoed in the vacuum as drones swarmed out of the black, cutting down defenses in seconds. The human ships didn't stay. They destroyed the target, hacked the satellite net, and vanished again, leaving behind nothing but fire and confusion. The Council's response was slow. Commanders shouted at each other in meetings. Some called it a rogue faction. Others claimed it was a trap. No one wanted to admit what it really was. Meanwhile, strike after strike hit their outer systems' fuel stations, comm beacons, relay hubs, all gone within hours. Whispers began to spread in the Council chambers. Some younger officers asked questions their elders didn't want to answer. Could it be humans? But the senior leaders laughed. "Impossible," they said. "Earth is dead." But in the shadows, fear grew. Back in the asteroid base, Juno received a secure message from Earth-coded, hidden in old frequencies used during the siege of Neptune. She read it alone, eyes narrowed. The message was short: for every world they took, take 2. She closed the screen and turned to Orion. "Double the strikes," she said. "Time to make them remember." Orion's voice responded without emotion, confirmed. "Redirecting fleets now." A map lit up, showing dozens of systems marked for attack. It was bold, maybe even reckless, but Juno knew it had to be done. The galaxy had forgotten who humans were. It had believed Earth to be soft, broken, finished. That lie had lasted for 50 years. It would not last 50 more hours. The Echo fleet moved like ghosts, faster than any enemy could react. They left no prisoners, but they also spared those who surrendered. Many aliens, shocked by the return of humans, dropped their weapons and ran. Others were captured, questioned, and then released with a message: tell them Earth is not gone. Earth remembers. The real turning point came when a Council dreadnought entered orbit over a human outer system Archeron, once a peaceful trade colony. The dreadnought expected no fight, but as it approached, a strange signal lit up their sensors. A countdown. 30 seconds. The crew laughed until the 30 seconds passed and dozens of human warships dropped out of hyperspace, surrounding them. The battle was fast, precise. The dreadnought was disabled, not destroyed, and the human fleet disappeared again before reinforcements could arrive. The message was clear: humans were back, and they were not hiding anymore. In the control room of the Revenant, Juno Rise watched the news spread across the galaxy. She saw the council begin to argue, saw their leaders shout over each other on public channels, blaming spies, blaming rogue units, blaming old ghosts. But they couldn't stop what was coming. The Echo fleet had awakened, and it would not sleep again. Juno stood alone, staring at the stars, and whispered. Far below her, more cryo-chambers were opening. More soldiers waking. Earth was rising, one battle at a time. The stars burned quietly above as the council gathered in secret, deep beneath the marble towers of Caravel 9, their voices hushed and sharp with fear. Reports from outer systems were arriving faster than they could be read, each one worse than the last depots destroyed, fleets lost, colonies silenced. None of the usual enemies could be blamed. Pirates were too weak. Rebel worlds lacked the technology. Only one name remained, one word spoken in disbelief: humans. But the Council had declared humanity extinct, and to admit their return now would mean admitting failure, so instead they argued in circles. Meanwhile, far from the debates, the Echo fleet moved like a rising storm, invisible and precise. Commander Juno Reyes stood at the heart of her flagship, Revenant, her eyes fixed on the holomap of Council space. Red marks spread like blood across the grid, each one a successful strike. Every day they pushed deeper. Every target was carefully chosen: comm relays, war factories, black site research stations where humans had once been tortured or experimented on. These were not just attacks. This was retribution. Retaliation Protocol, as it was named in Earth's hidden war codes, had one rule: never strike without reason, but never leave a wound unremembered. And as Earth's fleets continued to rise, silent ships emerging from oceans, deserts, and underground vaults, long thought forgotten, the strength of humanity became clearer. They had not just survived, they had prepared. On board the Revenant, the AI Orion calculated enemy movements before they happened. Using old Council signals, intercepted transmissions, and human-designed prediction models, Echo fleet always arrived just before the enemy was ready. They struck like ghosts, using tactics no alien species could understand: diversion, feints, double blinds, maneuvers based on deception rather than raw power. Alien generals, used to predictable battles and honor-bound combat, found themselves outmatched, outflanked, and outwitted. One by one, powerful fleets were dismantled. An admiral from the Varnak Empire tried to lead a trap in the Keon system. Echo fleet saw through it before the first shot. They lured his fleet into a nebula and disabled his flagship using EMP drones launched from asteroid fragments. The battle lasted 9 minutes. Juno watched it all in silence, not with joy but with purpose. She remembered Earth's fall, the broken cities, the poisoned skies, the Council's message of peace broadcast over burning homes. Now, Earth was speaking back, and its voice was thunder. On several conquered worlds, strange messages began to appear overnight, simple phrases carved into stone or hacked into broadcast towers. WEREMEMBER. These words sparked fear, but also something else. Across the galaxy, species that had once watched Earth's destruction in silence began to whisper. Could humanity have survived? Could they really be returning? Some were afraid, but others began to hope. On one border moon, a Council garrison surrendered without a shot. Juno spared them, leaving behind food, medical supplies, and a single warning beacon: do not follow us. Rumors spread faster than ships. Rebels on slave worlds began painting human flags on hidden walls. Mercenary bands who had once hunted humans now refused contracts involving them. Council leaders called for silence, ordered strict censorship, but it was too late. Fear was growing. The Council had ruled the galaxy for too long, too cruelly. Their enemies were many, and now they believed they had a new champion, one born from Earth's ashes. The turning point came during Operation Signal Break, a mission to strike the central relay hub in the Denari cluster. This massive station handled nearly 40% of the Council's military communications. Destroying it would cripple their coordination. Juno sent in her best 3 stealth wings under cover of a dying star's radiation field. They reached the hub and disabled its shields before the enemy knew what was happening. A fierce battle followed, the kind where ships collided at point-blank range, where gravity tore apart bulkheads and soldiers fought in zero-G corridors. When it ended, the hub was gone, reduced to floating metal. But it wasn't the destruction that shocked the Council, it was the message that followed. Using the hub's emergency channel, Orion broadcast a single, clear signal across the entire galactic network. "You declared victory too soon." Those words echoed across every system, reaching every leader, every soldier, every frightened citizen. The effect was immediate. Panic spread through the core worlds. Defense forces were recalled from far-off colonies. Emergency laws were passed. Curfews imposed. But none of it stopped the fleet. In fact, it made them faster. With fewer defenders spread across more targets, Echo Fleet accelerated. Juno now received reports from human agents, those who had hidden among the stars for decades, blending into alien cities, waiting for Earth's return. They brought information, coordinates, and allies. Some alien species began to help in secret, providing fuel, repairs, and intelligence in exchange for protection or simple hope. For the first time in living memory, the Council was on the defensive. And yet, Juno was not satisfied. She knew this war could not be won by strikes alone. A message had to be delivered, a symbol so strong that no one could ever forget again. That message, she decided, would be sent from the heart of the Council itself. As the Revenant turned its course toward Caravel 9, Orion asked, "Are you certain? This could expose our position." Juno nodded once. "Let them see us. Let them know we're coming. Fear is no longer enough. It's time they believe." And so, the ships moved forward, not hidden, not silent, but bright and bold through the void. For the first time in half a century, Earth's war banners were raised again, not for conquest, not for revenge, but for balance. In the dark corners of the galaxy, as stars watched quietly, a single truth became clear. Humanity had returned, and it had come not just to fight, but to change everything. Caravel 9, the shining jewel of the Galactic Council, sat like a glowing beacon in the heart of the galaxy, its towers stretching into the sky and its rings spinning slowly above a world built on pride and power. But beneath its polished surface, fear now crept like a shadow. Inside the main council chamber, leaders from across dozens of species met in emergency session, voices raised in panic as the news spread Echo Fleet was coming, and Earth's warships were no longer myths. Entire sectors had gone dark, outposts destroyed without warning, and now the ancient security lines drawn around the core systems were broken. Still, many of the Council's highest leaders refused to believe that Earth's fleet could reach them. "They have no numbers," some said. "They are ghosts," said others. But deep down, they knew this enemy was not like before. They had underestimated humanity once, and now the price was circling closer every hour. Meanwhile, on the edge of Council space, Commander Juno Reyes stood on the bridge of the Revenant, her eyes fixed on the glowing shape of Caravel 9 slowly coming into view. The ships of Echo Fleet followed silently, nearly invisible against the dark of space, positioned in attack formations, each one carrying soldiers who had once watched their homes fall, who had lost friends and family when the Council declared its victory over Earth too soon. Juno knew that this moment would not just shape the war, it would decide its soul. If they attacked like monsters, they would only become what the galaxy feared. But if they struck with purpose, with control, they could become something else, something stronger. The AI Orion spoke calmly from the central command screen, listing enemy fleet numbers, orbital defense positions, and atmospheric shield patterns. Probability of success, 61%, Orion said. Surprise advantage, critical. Juno nodded, but said nothing. She was thinking not of numbers, but of meaning. This wasn't about destroying Caravel 9. It was about showing the galaxy the truth, showing them that Earth had never been the villain. The plan was set. Echo Fleet would not launch a full-scale attack. Instead, they would perform a surgical strike, drop commandos into the heart of the Council, not to kill leaders, but to broadcast the real story of the war, the lies told, the treaties broken, the planets erased from history. Teams moved fast. Inside the Revenant, drop pods were loaded. Soldiers in dark armor, specially trained, emotionally steady, prepared without noise or fear. They carried weapons, but also small data cores filled with video files, records, and testimonies buried by Council propaganda. As the fleet entered the inner defense zone, they moved faster than expected. Stealth systems held strong. Enemy scanners flickered with static. Juno gave the command. Begin insertion. In seconds, dozens of pods launched from the fleet, streaking through the blackness like falling stars. They hit Caravel 9's outer districts hard and fast, crashing through towers and roads, releasing soldiers who melted into the city streets. Panic spread quickly. Civilians screamed. Security forces scrambled. But the humans didn't attack civilians. They moved straight for data towers, broadcasting stations, and the central dome where council meetings were held. One team, led by Captain Marin, stormed the main archive center. They found the hidden files, evidence of council betrayals, footage of surrendered humans being executed, and secret orders to erase entire colonies. Another team hijacked a Sky network and began broadcasting these truths to every screen, every comm device, every major city on Caravel 9. Across the planet, people stopped and stared. They had been told Earth was evil, but now they saw humans helping injured civilians, fighting only military targets, and risking their lives to spread the truth. In the council chamber, chaos erupted. Leaders watched the videos with horror, some recognizing their own signatures on the death orders. "Shut it down," one shouted. "Destroy the signal." But it was too late. Across the galaxy, the truth was out. Even in systems loyal to the Council, soldiers began refusing orders. Protests broke out on mining worlds. Mercenaries changed sides. The fear that had once kept the Council in control was crumbling. Back on Caravel 9, the drop teams faced heavy resistance. Drones swarmed, tanks rolled through the streets, and Council elites ordered orbital strikes. But the humans held their ground just long enough. As casualties rose, Juno gave the evacuation order. "We're not here to destroy," she said. "We're here to wake them up." Drop teams extracted quickly, pods rising through the smoke and fire, some damaged but still flying. The Revenant and its fleet covered the retreat with precision strikes, targeting defense cannons and air traffic control towers to buy time. Once all teams were recovered, Echo Fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind only silence and the truth. In the hours that followed, Caravel 9's skies cleared, but its people did not return to normal. They had seen what the Council tried to hide, and many were angry. Others were ashamed. Some were afraid. But none could forget. In secret, messages began spreading, words of support, offers to join the fight, whispers of rebellion. Juno watched from her command chair as new transmissions poured in from across the galaxy. Earth was no longer alone. Allies were rising from the ashes. Orion's voice came again. Mission completed. Civil unrest on Caravel 9 spreading. Trust in Council reduced by 47%. Juno didn't smile. She simply stood and looked at the stars beyond the window. The heart of the galaxy had been pierced, not with fire, but with truth. Now, the next step would decide everything. The stars were no longer silent. Across the galaxy, systems buzzed with whispers of change, and at the center of it all stood Earth, no longer a broken memory, but a symbol of resistance, of strength, and now of balance. After the strike on Caravel 9, nothing was the same. The Council's grip weakened day by day, its leaders divided, its allies uncertain. Old enemies of Earth now questioned everything they had believed, while many neutral species began reaching out in secret to the one force that had dared to challenge the ancient order. In the command center of the Revenant, Commander Juno Rise reviewed the reports pouring in from distant systems, mutinies and council fleets, rebellions and slave colonies, diplomatic channels once closed now flickering to life with cautious offers of peace. But Juno wasn't celebrating. She knew the war wasn't over. The galaxy had only just begun to awaken, and the path ahead would be harder than the one behind. Earth's fleets had shown their strength, their courage, their unity, but now came the true test. Could they build something better? Orion, the ever-watchful AI, projected a new set of strategic goals on the holomap, highlighting critical systems ready to fall, others needing support, and key diplomatic targets requesting meetings. Juno studied it quietly, her mind already calculating risks and consequences, and then she gave a simple command: prepare a summit. It was time not to fight, but to lead. Messages were sent to leaders across species and systems, an invitation not for surrender, but for dialogue. The location chosen was neutral ground, the ancient station of Res Prime, a forgotten place once used for peace talks in a time before war ruled the stars. The council, desperate to hold on to any shred of control, agreed to attend, but only under heavy guard. Others came: two rebel leaders, rogue captains, representatives of long-oppressed planets. The galaxy, for the first time in decades, held its breath. Juno arrived with a small escort, wearing no armor, no weapons, only the blue flag of Earth, marked with the white star of unity. She walked through the halls of Rest Prime surrounded by watchers, some curious, some cold, but none willing to act against her. The meeting began in silence. Council members demanded answers, shouted accusations, tried to twist the story back into their favor. But Juno simply played the video's proof of the Council's crimes, proof of Earth's survival, proof of everything they had tried to erase. Then she spoke not of revenge, not of victory, but of balance. "We do not seek to rule," she said. "We seek fairness. We seek truth. We seek peace, but not the kind built on fear. A real peace. One where no species is forgotten, where no planet is burned for power, where no voice is silenced." The room stayed quiet. Some scoffed, but others leaned forward. A Varnak warlord, once an enemy of Earth, spoke next. "And what if we believe you?" "What then?" Juno answered without pause. "Then we build something new together." The talks lasted days. Secrets were shared, old wounds reopened, new alliances formed. The council fractured further as member worlds broke away, choosing instead to join what was now being called the Restoration Pact, an idea born not from Earth's weapons, but from its will to survive and rebuild. Across the stars, the effects spread like light through darkness. Council prisons were opened. Slave mines were shut down. Refugees who had hidden since Earth's fall began to return, slowly, cautiously, to the new promise rising in their place. And yet, even in hope, danger remained. A faction within the old council, those who refused to change, launched a last attack, sending ships to destroy the summit at Rest Prime. Their goal was to kill the leaders gathered there and blame it on humans. But they failed. Echo Fleet was waiting, ready, and intercepted the armada before it could reach the station. The battle was fast, brutal, final. The attackers were captured alive and brought before the very leaders they had tried to destroy. None were executed. They were tried, sentenced, and held under a new law, one agreed upon by all races under the Restoration Pact. That moment, more than any battle, proved that Earth had not come to conquer it, had come to restore the balance the galaxy had lost. Juno returned to the Revenant with new responsibilities. She was no longer just a commander, she had become a symbol, a voice for all those who had suffered in silence. But she carried that weight with calm resolve. The galaxy would not change overnight, and the ghosts of war would not fade easily. There would be setbacks. There would be those who still feared humanity. But now, Earth had allies. Now, Earth had a place at the table. In the final days of that year, a message was sent from the heart of the galaxy, carried on every open frequency, translated into every known language. It was not a threat. It was a promise. We remember. We rise. We share the stars not in chains, but in choice. And across the galaxy, lights flickered in answer, not from weapons, but from homes, from cities, from ships that once hid in fear and now flew with pride. Earth had returned, not as a destroyer, but as a guardian. The balance had been broken for too long. Now it had been reborn.